I'm Ali Imran Zaidi, and I'm a writer of features, TV, shorts, primarily in the genres of thrillers, sci-fi, crime. Of course, in the short space, everything goes. My mother is a writer in the Urdu language. She's written quite a bit, uh, heavily short stories, but a lot of material she's written. She still writes, and in the Urdu language. And I, didn't have the full I understand and speak Urdu, which is the Pakistani language, but it's not at the level that I could fully appreciate her work. But there is something in the process of seeing her doing that growing up that just, was very interesting to me, and it just spoke to me. When I was very little, I had a teacher 1 year who, this was probably third grade, probably fourth grade. Yeah, fourth grade, maybe fourth grade. But she did this competition in class where she said, okay, everybody, we're all going to do a competition. We're going to write a play, and then we're all going to decide which one we're going to do, and then do it as a class and actually do the play. And so that particular month, a light bulb just went off. Just wrote pages and pages of stuff, like some things I tossed aside. I don't know. It's a complete blur, but I just remember being completely lost in it. And I ended up getting second place. So we did the other guy's play, but it was really funny. So I had a good time. But the whole process of it was just kind of blew my mind. Like it just blew my mind. And because we actually did it. We did the play, the whole class, all the students, we all got up on a stage and we did his play. And I was like, wait, you can do that? Like, that's a possible thing? Like, people write these things? And so that was the kind of like first time that it really hit. And then, I got a bit older, immigrated to the United States, and then the usual kind of thing happens, especially among South Asian households, where you're either going to be a doctor or an engineer or whatever. And so, like, I went into computer science and did that for a little while. I got into programming, I did marketing, like all that kind of stuff. But I always had this thing that I always wanted to do. And it wasn't until like later on where I was working at a marketing agency surrounded by creative people. And all of a sudden, I'm like, why don't I tap into these resources and just start making short films? And that's what I did. I just started, using whatever connections I had, people that are normally doing advertising things and whatever, just kind of like put it all together and just started doing short films. And, sure, it was the early days and a lot of them stunk. But that, again, process of, it's the continuous fast cycle of either success or failure. Find out what's working, what's not working, and all that kind of stuff. And it just, and I just loved it. I just really enjoyed it. I just loved being around. I loved being around creative people. I love being around actors and directors and just people that just want to make things. Like, it's just extremely thrilling. And, for me, it's just one of those things where, like, when I'm writing, I don't recognize the passage of time. Like, it just happens. Time just goes by. I have no idea what happened, where the last however many hours went. And, I feel like when you find something like that, it's a true passion that you should think about. Her behavior is probably the biggest inspiration for me, because I would just see her just whenever she could just sit down at a desk and start and just work on it, right, and just do it. She just would do it. And that's, the number one lesson for any writer. It's like you can talk about doing it, but ultimately, there is the long journey of just doing it. And to see that discipline, extremely, informative. And yes, I do share material with her. She comes from a completely different world and a different, so some of the stuff, like, she has no interest in science fiction, so I'm not going to send her science fiction. But when it comes to other material, absolutely. The short film I, recently wrote, definitely her style.
Yeah.
Character based, a relationship. That's what she really is very, very much interested in. And that is a good route for me, like in understanding that, like, aside from all of the other aspects of genre and things that we get into and the fun and games of it all, underneath it is just the brass tacks. It's usually, two people maybe in a room talking underneath it all. no matter what they're doing, whatever you're seeing them do, floating in space, two people talking, whatever it is. It's, you know, you watch like Game of Thrones, almost all of the show is two people walking next to each other or sitting next to each other and talking. Like, you know, ultimately that's where story comes from, relationships. My voice, I would say, like over time, first of all, the process of finding the voice, there's no way to do it without like going through the process of finding your voice. You know, it's one of those things where there's a while of, you know, just maybe just slogging at it and maybe hating your work, maybe copying others' work, all that kind of stuff. You just do it. And then eventually you figure out that, wait a second, the way I think inside can come out on the page too. I don't have to just be doing it in this other way that everybody else is doing it. It's an expression of your own, the way your own mind works, the way your own heart works, the way your own thoughts are. And so the process of that, of reaching that, just takes time. And for me, I would say, you know, in most of my work, especially in the TV and feature space, is this kind of matter of fact, but with like a tinge of very dry humor underneath the story that I'm presenting. And I don't know how to better describe it because it's such a nebulous thing, but I like to get past pomp and circumstance and just get to it. That's kind of like how I am in personality, and I think that comes through in my writing too. My writing ritual has changed over time. When I was just a single guy, my writing ritual was very chaotic and probably mostly at night. Then I got married, and then I had children, and you don't have the, you know, the luxury of choosing when your writing time is. You have to figure out where you can do your writing time. And kids go to school, I'm at it. You know, my only true start to the ritual is always put as much coffee inside me as possible, because to me, coffee is liquid optimism. If I have enough coffee in me, I feel like I can conquer whatever puzzle I might be facing that particular day. Until I've had my coffee, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know what's going to happen. I get the coffee, I'm ready to go. So as long as I, you know, now I get daytime, put me next to a window, which I really like, and give me some coffee. That's what I need to write. And I do that as much as humanly possible with children in a relationship. It's usually weekdays during the day. The most important lesson I learned, and you know, I've talked about this a lot, which is just the discipline required to be an artist of any type. You know, when I first thought about, first of all, I initially didn't think of, when I thought about being an artist, it was like, oh, a painter. That's when I was very young. I was like, oh, that's what an artist is. But no, an artist can be in many different fields and many different types. And, you know, I for a while, I worked for a man who was a pure businessman, but he was the most creative, artistic businessman. Like, business and marketing was his art, and he was really good at it. And, you know, there's an art to that. There's an art to everything. But the lesson I think I learned shortly after realizing that, you know, art is something I wanted to pursue is that there is a dogged discipline to art. You can't just wait around for a muse. You can't just, you know, say like, oh, the inspiration might strike me on this day. You just have to sit and you work and you create waves that hopefully becomes a gathering tide that becomes your work. And unless you do that, unless you sit in front of a computer or you in front of an easel or whatever it is that your art is, unless you sit down and just do the work, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to get done. And you create more opportunities for good stuff to happen. You know, for every 10 bad ideas, there might be one good idea. Well, you have to get through those 10 to get to that one. And if you don't have that one, you have nothing. So just the discipline of it is something I learned, I think, early that I latched onto. I write a lot of shorts. A lot of them, they just sit in a folder on my computer, and I think about shooting it, and I'm not sure if I want to, and all that kind of stuff. This particular one I wrote, and it really spoke to me emotionally, and even though it's not in a quote unquote genre that I normally write, there was something that I felt compelled, um, something about it that I felt compelled to make, that I felt like it needed to be out there, it needed to be shot, it needed to be at festivals, it needed to be seen. Um, and I was thinking about, okay, well, let me try to assemble a team and just completely by a fluke. I think I got an ad for the Shoot Your Short competition through email. I think I'm on the network ISA. I am on the network ISA emails, and I received an email about it. I was like, hey, wait a second, why don't I submit to that? And of course, I procrastinated. I'm like, I don't know. And then I think it was close to like the final deadline. And I was like, let me just submit it. Let me just submit it. I'm glad I did, because it, worked out. But yeah, that was the process, of submitting it to the competition. I just felt like to do this particular thing and to do it right, I'm going to need a little bit more support than just try to, figure it out all by myself, that kind of thing. And so just, I think the idea of having a production staff that's kind of like supporting me from behind was really inviting to me. When it comes to features and things like that, there's only two types of contests that I'm really ever interested in. One is it's either got some element of prestige to it, right? Like Nickel Fellowship,
Yeah.
element of prestige is the Academy. So obviously those are ones that that are like no-brainers to submit to, and falling along those same lines are ones that are being offered by the studios. So like if there's Disney does their thing, Paramount, Universal, etc. They all do their own things. So any of those big name ones, those are obviously no-brainers. Then aside from that, it's like, is there some material benefit in the winnings? Beyond just we'll get you meetings, it's more of like, is there some kind of support that you can provide, whether that's financial support or production support or something that can come from it. Then obviously there's tremendous value in that. So like then it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot for even a contest that you don't know that well, because they're providing you a material benefit of some sort. And because you know I'm from Florida. There's no shortage of cities in and around Orlando where I used to live that have these like small film festivals and different things like that. And they're great because it's networking and local support and all that kind of stuff, but like it doesn't provide you any career material benefit beyond that networking. And I think it's valuable to to get something more, especially and of course it changes, because when I was first doing it, you want to start small. You want to start at a small local level. You want to do that because as you learn and get better and like all that kind of stuff, you're going to start submitting to the bigger ones. You want to start at the small ones, but then eventually, you feel like, uh, you know, I feel like I'm at a place with my writing where like I am making money from my writing, and so therefore, if I'm going to submit to a contest, it needs to provide me some material benefit of either support, finances, production support, package of something, provide something, you know what I mean? Or in the case of like the studios or Nickel, it's like career development. As we're gearing up in pre-production right now, obviously working with the ISA crew has been great, yourself included, because it's this kind of, the process of making any film, but especially short films, is a very lonely and singular kind of process, because it's you against the world, slowly trying to build up resources and calling in favors and this and that, whatever, and trying to put together finances and plans and making the right, figuring out the right legal things and like or paperwork or union paperwork or any of that kind of stuff. All of that is like very difficult to navigate. And the fact that I'm getting this support from the Shoot Your Short team at ISA, it's like invaluable. Like it's, and we've been doing our weekly check-ins, and we're really, making material steps that are heading us towards production. And also it's kind of, especially in the case of Felicity, always holding the fire under my feet to make sure that I'm making progress every week is, it may, feel like too much at week to week, but at the same time, that's how you get there. And that's what you want out of any good producer. keep the fire under your feet. So it's, it's been great. I'm enjoying it a lot. And I feel like I'm making progress, and I'm doing it in a way that doesn't feel like it's on somebody else's terms. I'm doing it on my terms. You guys are here to support me, which is really, that kind of approach is really valuable to me. And you want it to be my story, and you want it to be the thing that you chose. So all of that put together makes for a really enjoyable experience, and productive experience. The thing that I do appreciate a lot coming from ISA and the Shoot Your Short staff is that they chose a script to win the competition, and they want me to make that script, right? And they want to support what I am trying to do with the film. We've had discussions about intention and purpose and the way that audiences should feel and all those things, all those important things. That's what a good producer does. Like, hey, what is a kernel of what this is for you? And I know what it is for me for this particular project, and the staff has been there to support that and is not implementing ideas or thoughts or visions or trying to develop it into something else. This isn't a bad studio situation or anything like that. It is like, hey, you have a particular singular vision of what this thing should be. Let's help you make that. And I think that's been really liberating, helpful, bolstering. I don't know what the right word is. I need a thesaurus. But yeah, like it's just the process of it has been really positive, productive, and I don't feel in any way that like what I'm trying to do or what I would hope for with this is being compromised in any way, but rather being supported, and like how can we make this the best version of what it is with the best resources we can put together. So what I'm really hoping, because of the subject matter of this particular script, I want to have as many people see it as possible. So that begins with the usual way, which is you create it, you submit it to festivals, and you try to get it into the most significant festivals you can possibly get it into. You do your best. And then outside of that, I've actually been having discussions with somebody that I know that has done a lot of impact work around a film, having discussions about like how can we potentially work with organizations that could show this. So like if they already have events or fundraisers or different things like that for a cause that is relevant to the subject matter of the story, maybe we can add this to their arsenal of things that they show their people in order to gain interest. And so, but in that process, more people get to see it, especially people that are already warm to the subject and want to, help. So that's the ultimate goal, is to get as many people to kind of watch it and then just remember. I just want people to remember that outside of anything to do with politics and countries and warfare and all that kind of stuff, forget all about that for a second and just remember that we're talking about humans and human children that are always bearing the cost of war. And there's something that we should do at all times in our mind, in our hearts. We should always be focusing on them and remembering that there are real human beings underneath all of this. And I want as many people to see it, because I think that is the message of the film. Is just remember, we're always creating either, we're constantly creating the world that we want to live in. All of us, with our behavior, with our impact, with our minds, with our imaginations. So what do we want to create? And from my perspective, we should be creating a world where children are safe to grow, to be protected, to be able to then envision their own worlds. And that's how the human race works. That's how we progress. And if, you know, at the end of it, we have to protect children. Like that's the core of it. And I want people to remember that regardless of where you stand politically, children are universally to be protected and kept safe. If I did have a time machine, I could go back and talk to myself. The first thing I would do is be like, start doing it faster and earlier, you know, because there was a lot of time where I just felt like second guessing myself. I'm like, hey, I've got this other career, making money. It's a good job, it's secure, blah 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 blah. I'm comfortable, you know. I lived in a city that I was comfortable and it was fine. But there was this thing that I wanted to do that I always just kind of pushed aside because it felt unreasonable to spend my time and effort on it. And so if I could go back and tell myself anything, it would be, no, you can do it. You can make it happen. Start now, do it faster, fail quicker, move faster. And that's what I would tell myself.
That's cool.